The theme this week is get your grammar right first. The theme is 30 things to do in New Zealand for under $30. Because yes, not everything in New Zealand is a $500 skydive. There are things that you can do for, you know, a pretty affordable price.
Exactly. So if you are planning on traveling in New Zealand a bit on a budget, we've got you sorted, right? As Laura was saying, a lot of the main activities that people want to do in New Zealand are several $100s. And they're worth doing. They're worth the price.
They're
like
pretty
a lot
big
of them,
activities.
Yeah,
so,
a lot of them are really worth doing. But that also means that if you want to travel without breaking the bank, you also have to slot quite a few cheap activities to do. So today we are not going to talk about any free activities, right? Free activities, we're probably going to do another videos where we're going to rank our favorites free activities to do on the North Island or the South Island, something like that. Today we're going to talk about activities which are paid for, but that are under $30 to keep you on budget.
Yeah,
Here you go.
Absolutely.
Okay, so let's get started with the first batch of things to do under $30 for this video. And yeah, we're going to pass you on to the beautiful Laura for the first one.
All right, so our first activity that you can usually do for under $30 is to have a kiwi bird encounter. So there are various sort of kiwi hatcheries and attractions around New Zealand where they are basically, the main focus of what they do is that they hatch kiwi bird eggs that have been taken from the wild, raise the chicks until they're strong enough to be re-released into the wild so they can hopefully stand a better chance of you know, surviving in the wild. So yeah, there's various different places where you can see this happening. For instance, there's Kiwi North and the Whangarei Native Bird Recovery Centre, which is fairly cheap. And then there's the West Coast Wildlife Centre in Franz Joseph, which is definitely worth a visit.
All right, so the next activity you can be doing under $30 in New Zealand, even sometimes free, is to actually visit some wineries, especially in the Marlborough region. So the Marlborough region is located pretty much on the top of the South Island of New Zealand, and it's New Zealand's largest wine region. It's really famous for its Sauvignon Blanc, so if you're really into this type of wine, you're definitely going to find some nice fruity beverages over there. You can literally appoint a designated driver, drive yourself around all the different wineries, and when you enter wineries, they will either give you like free very small samples that you can sample a few of their wines with the hope that you'll buy a few bottles, or sometimes you have like a taster of like, you know, 5 or 6 different wine for, you know, let's say about $10, something like that. So it's relatively cheap to go around wineries and taste some awesome wines. Just be aware that when you're like the 5th or 6th different winery, you're probably going to start spending money on actually buying the bottles of wine yourself and you know, buying some way too heavy to carry souvenirs to bring back home.
All right, next up on our list is to wander among hot springs and geysers at a geothermal park. So many of the geothermal parks that you'll find around New Zealand are actually under $30. So for instance, there's the Waimangu Volcanic Valley, which is outside of Rotorua, which is more on the higher end of the scale of prices, but it's still under $30, and you can spend a whole day there with the amount of stuff that you can see there. But if you want to go super cheap, there are some really cheap geothermal parks like Craters of the Moon in Taupo, which is one of the cheapest in the country. I think it's still under $10, so yeah, there's that option as well.
All right, so if you make it all the way to the south of the South Island, all the way to the border of the South Island, and then you make it all the way to Stewart Island, which is the island at the south of the South Island of New Zealand, the island is amazing. It's mostly a national park. There's heaps of amazing wildlife, but a lot of people only go there for about a day. Now, when you are in Auburn, which is the town which is in Stewart Island, you can take a ferry to a small island called Ulva Island. It's just about a minute of the shore. It's really short distance of the shore of the South Island of New Zealand, and the ferry itself to get there is only under $20, right? And it's really awesome. It's return, and the island itself is really awesome. You'll be able to walk literally in what New Zealand looked like 800 years ago. It's absolutely phenomenal. There is heaps of birds there. And so yeah, to make your way down to Stewart Island, you can take the Real NZ ferry that will take you from Bluff all the way to Auburn in Stewart Island. All right, moving on to the next one.
Okay, another nice, cheap and affordable activity you can do in New Zealand is soak in some hot pools. So there's plenty of hot pools all around the country that are under $30, thank goodness, because that would otherwise be quite expensive. And for instance, you have Taupo de Bretts, which is in the town of Taupo, and that is under $30, as well as Waikiki Valley, which is between Rotorua and Taupo. That's one of our favourite ones, and we do have a video on the channel of us visiting it. And that is also under $30. And for a quick mention for the South Island, Lake Tekapo Hot Springs is another good one.
While you guys are popping up with some questions about traveling in New Zealand, go nuts. We will do another batch of 5 awesome things to do in New Zealand under $30. And shall we start with the beautiful Laura?
Yeah, let's do it. All right, first up, another wildlife-related activity for you for under $30, and it's located in the city centre of Wellington, and that is Zealandia. So this is a bird sanctuary where they have a predator-proof fence around the perimeter of it, but it's pretty big. It's a pretty big park with lots of walking trails and some really nice, smooth walking trails as well, so it's wheelchair accessible. You can take a stroller if you're with a family, etc., etc. So yeah, really easy to access. They even do free buses from the iSite to Zealandia from Wellington. So yeah, you can go and check out lots of crazy looking native birds from New Zealand, and yes, they are crazy looking. Those big blue takahe, they're so weird but so cool. So yeah, you can go check them out at Zealandia.
All right, thank you, Laura. There's a lot of very self-conscious birds now somewhere in New Zealand. She's like, am I really looking weird? I should use more filters on Instagram. Okay, so the next thing that I have for you guys, which is under $30, is actually eating a classic kiwi pie. So in New Zealand, savory pies, which are about that big, are quite, quite a cultural icon in the country. And, you can find that in any of the truck shop, in any of the gas stations. It's really kind of a snack that when you're on the road in New Zealand, you kind of have one of those. Obviously, you can have some like really exceptional one, and you can have some really meh one, but at least all of them are going to cost under $30. You know, there may be like a fancy one somewhere that costs more than that, but that'd be insane. Some of my favorite bakeries include on the South Island, the Fairley Bakery. If you're traveling around the beautiful area, you know, Mount Cook, Tekapo, all the way down to Queenstown, there is the Fairley Bakery around there. And if you are making your way between Taupo down to the beautiful National Park on the North Island of New Zealand, stop by the Turangi Bakery. Both of those bakeries offer amazingly good pies, and both of them are award-winning, which is quite cool. Next up on our list, Laura.
Okay, another thing that you can do in New Zealand is a brewery tour. So so these are usually very affordable to do, under $30 obviously for this list. And across New Zealand, it's said that there's about 160 at least microbreweries in New Zealand. It's really a huge hobby here. And some of the famous brewery tours that you can do for a very affordable price is the Monteith's Brewery Tour, located in Greymouth on the South Island, as well as the Spates Brewery Tour, which you can find in Dunedin, also on the South Island.
All right, so moving on to something for the movie lovers, we have the Weta Workshop in beautiful Wellington. So Wellington is known as Wellywood. It is basically where we do movies here in New Zealand. And yeah, the Weta Studios are some of the special effects studios behind some of the biggest biggest blockbuster on the planet, such as Avatar, Lord of the Rings, some of the Marvel movies, and even Chappie. Which I really like and nobody did. Anyway, I really liked it. District 9 was really cool as well. So yeah, awesome. Anyway, so they do really awesome tours over there. Just even going to the Weta Caves itself, going into the small museum that they have. So the Weta Cave is basically the gift shop. You can do that for free, and then you can also do the tour if you want to. There's even a mini cinema where you can watch a behind the scene of, like, you know, how movie were made, some of the movie was made. So it's pretty awesome for sure to visit that. Okay, next on our list, Laura.
So if you go to the very quirky town of Oamaru, there you'll find a very interesting sort of museum/art gallery called Steampunk HQ. It's definitely one that we recommend to go visit, no matter whether you're into steampunk, which is kind of like a subgenre of sci-fi, or not. They have very unique art pieces there that are all interactive, so you can go through various things, you can play crazy pianos, you can even go into this really weird sort of room. I can't remember how they call it, but it's something like the vortex room with crazy lights and mirrors. It's just a really different experience that is especially good to do on a rainy day when you're exploring the South Island. If you want to contribute to what we discuss here on nzpocketguide.com, you can be one of our patrons as well. So just for as little as a coffee per month.
Oh, that analogy.
Yes, that one. You could. We have lots of perks and benefits that you can check out. We do have a link in the description. So lots of perks to enjoying good times with us here at NZ Pocket Guide.
Okay, so shall we do another batch of 5, Laura? You keen?
How about that? Yes.
All right.
Starting straight away. Let's go. So, another nice affordable activity that is well worth checking out is the Omaka Aviation Heritage Center. So, what this is, some basically old warplanes from World War I and World War II. There's like 2 separate exhibitions, but the way they display them are in these really like creative static scenes that have been actually, we were just speaking about Weta, they've actually been sort of created by the Weta workshop and makes it look really realistic and just really interesting way to present sort of like museum sort of displays, but in a next level, like really amazing and unique way. So this is located in Blenheim, which is at the top of the South Island, and for a deal it is wheelchair accessible as well, so very easy to get around and have a look.
All right, so next on our list, we have doing an Art Deco tour around Napier. So the history of Napier is quite interesting. In 1931, there was a massive earthquake that destroyed most of the city. And after that, the city was rebuilt in, very characterful Art Deco architecture. So you can join the Art Deco Trust in Napier for a walking tour around the city. You'll be going, between all the different streets and all that, checking out a lot of buildings. And that will give you a little bit of a headset, and you will be able to hear your guide. So no matter how busy and noisy the streets are going to be, not really, it's Napier, but you'd still be able to hear very well your guide. So it's a really cool historical tour, something very different to do in New Zealand compared to your classic nature kind of tours that you'll be able to do. There is a bit of history to be discovered in New Zealand, believe it or not, there is.
All right, next on our list for things to do for under $30 in New Zealand, we have Washpen Falls, which is an amazing hidden gem located in the Canterbury region, just a reasonable drive from Christchurch, more close to Methven. And this is a really cool, what seems to be just a walk to start with, that's the best way to describe it, but there's much more to the experience than that. So they have archaeological sites, some sort of Maori settlement remains there, which is really interesting. They also have lots of caves, obviously the waterfalls, that's what it's named after, Washpen Falls. There's walking through various different forests and getting up to amazing viewpoints as well. And a really neat little thing that they have is this little lake where they have a little rowing boat, and you can get in the rowing boat and go for a row around the lake, which we've done exactly that ourselves, which you can check out the video on the channel of us at Washpen Falls if you want to see what we're going on about.
She forced me to row that boat on that damn photo. Anyway, moving on. Another great, very cheap thing to do in New Zealand is to actually try some of the local delicacies. So obviously trying the kiwi pies is a must do in New Zealand, but there is a lot of other kind of small food items that you may want to try in the country. Manuka honey is one of them, and I'll get back to that in a minute. But LNP is a New Zealand soda. It's kind of a New Zealand lemonade. Whitaker's chocolate, obviously, it's kind of definitely worth trying for sure. Now, obviously, the iconic one is the Manuka honey. So if you happen to be nearby, have a look north. You can head to the Arataki Honey Visitor Center. It's actually really cool. It's really interactive. The kids are really going to love it. And if you are passing through Taupo and stopping by Hookah Falls, and of course you are because everybody is, nearby there is the Hookah Honey Hive, which is basically a really big gift shop, but there is a bit of an exhibition there and it's definitely worth checking out if you do have the time to do so.
All right, another nice affordable thing to do, again, this time in Christchurch, actually in the city centre of Christchurch, is to experience the city and see the sights in a strange and unusual way, which is taking the hop-on, hop-off tram around the city centre. So yeah, just a fun way to experience Christchurch and ride its historic tramway. That is, yeah, the hop-on, hop-off tram is a really cool experience, and you can, you know, obviously as the name suggests, you can get off at each of the attractions around the way and spend more time in various places in Christchurch before catching the next tram. Very fun.
And just like that, we are halfway through.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, shall we do another 5, Laura?
How about it?
Okay,
Yes.
do you want to get us started?
Of course. All right, another really nice, affordable activity to do. This time going to the, well, actually, there is this attraction in Auckland as well as in Queenstown, and that is going to an ice bar. So yeah, in Queenstown you have 2 different options when you go to check out these ice bars, which is basically the point of this attraction is they do sort of ice sculptures around in a bar setting. Usually you get 1 drink sort of included in the experience, and then you have to pay for the rest of the drinks after that if you want to stay there. But they suit you up in a really nice, warm, cozy coat or jacket, and then yeah, enjoy your time drinking in a giant freezer. It's pretty much
it. It's sold. Okay, moving on.
That's what it's like. You're just in a giant freezer. And then yeah, but surrounded by some really cool artwork, frozen ice sculptures. But yeah, it's definitely one of the highlights of New Zealand. It's not really, but it's just a fun thing to do for quite cheap experience. So yeah, check it out in Queenstown or Auckland.
All right, so if you want to freeze because of the wind and sometimes the rain, you may want to go up Port Hill on the Christchurch gondola. No, jokes aside, you'll be able to get some amazing views up there by taking the Christchurch gondola. You'll be able to see, obviously, all Port Hills, the Canterbury Plain, as well as beautiful Littleton Harbour. So if you want to do something a little bit different, something with more views, more grandiose kind of feel of New Zealand, and you are in Christchurch, that is one of the most accessible things to do, and it's pretty cool. It's just really fun, and in my personal opinion is better than getting stuck into a freezer with a bit of booze.
And speaking of other experiences that are better than being in a freezer, is the Auckland Museum. So yeah, the Auckland Museum is one of the sort of largest museums in the country. It has lots of different aspects to it. So they have the sort of war memorial side of things where you can learn more about New Zealand's role in the various world wars, but also you can check out some natural history, some Maori history as well. So there's really a lot to explore there. However, it isn't free like actually some of the museums are around the rest of the country, but there are but it does have an entry fee for visitors, which is still under $30, so it's quite affordable.
All right, so another great thing to do when traveling around New Zealand, and I feel like I have all the ones to do with food, is to actually try a bunch of different New Zealand cheeses. So New Zealand cheeses are actually quite famous, and you'll be able to make this experience your own, right? There are a couple of cheese factories that you can visit in New Zealand, but they're usually like very small. But what you can do is to literally buy yourself a cheese platter from a local supermarket and be able to have a selection of cheeses that are made in in New Zealand. So some brands like Kapiti or Whitestone are absolutely exceptional. So just pack a bunch of cheeses and actually have a little bit of a picnic somewhere, and or just along one of your walk, and just kind of like, you know, deluxify your next hike with a bit of a New Zealand cheese platter, paired maybe with some of the bottle of wine that, because you were drunk, you were coerced to buy when you were doing your Marlborough tastings over there that we talked about a little bit earlier. That's a great way to kind of experience New Zealand's cuisine per se.
Okay, and another really fun experience to have for under $30. Robin, stop laughing on the side. It's quite a unique experience as well, and this is the Hooker Prawn Park, which is located in Taupo. This is a really good family-friendly activity, and the reason why this place can exist is basically the geothermal water heats up so that they can farm prawns. Robin's laughing beside me and distracting me. Anyway, so yeah, so it's really interesting to learn about. Robin, you gotta stop laughing. Yeah, let me do my time talking about the Hooker Prawn Park. All right. So the Hooker Prawn Park. So yeah, you can learn about basically farming the prawns there, but also they have these really fun like activity areas where you can try to hook your own prawn, which is really, really the reason Robin's laughing is because we actually tried to do this ourselves, and we do have a video on the channel.
They don't even have prawns anymore.
You can, but yeah,
you can't do that anymore. There's no prawns.
I know, but maybe one day there will be.
No. All right, no
They have
prawns.
an activity centre there where
Yes.
you can go and do, like, there's lots of different experiences you can do. It's more family-friendly thing.
Yeah, it's great to do with kids. It is. I'm just in a joyful mood today. That's just it. That's just it. Sherry says she's going to have a cheese platter for dinner one night now, when she's visits. That's pretty awesome. All right, so just like that, we are 2/3 in. We're definitely taking this video seriously. I really like that. We're definitely not cracking up every 2 seconds. It's just, that's what happens when you try to force us to have more sleep, people. It's just, we get delirious. We shouldn't, you know, this daylight saving stuff is not working for us.
Okay, next up on the list is to visit one of the many farm parks that there are around New Zealand. So New Zealand's kind of famous for its sheep population. It's kind of like the big thing here, but it also has a huge dairy industry as well. There's a lot of people that have lifestyle farms, and just, you know, seeing farm animals is kind of cool. So yeah, there are a lot of sort of tourist farm parks that you can go and visit. And one, for example, would be the Bulls Wool Farm Park, which is located near Karangahaki Gorge, which is in the North Island between the Waikato and Coromandel region. And yeah, it's always good to go when it's lambing season, because you go and get to feed the baby lambs, and that's so cute. So yeah, that's a nice affordable activity you can do in New Zealand.
Now, when it comes down to big cities in New Zealand, it's actually quite hard to find really affordable things to do. Laura mentioned already the Auckland War Memorial Museum, which is one of those. And if you happen to be in Wellington, obviously there is a Te Papa Museum, which is free, so it doesn't make this list, as all the items in this list have to be paid. And in Wellington, we have the cable car. So the world famous Wellington cable car, it's actually really unique. So first up, it only costs about $10 to take it. And it will literally take you from like the bustling streets of Wellington all the way to the top of a beautiful hill. There is a free museum about the cable car, which is quite cool as well. But it takes you all the way to the Wellington Botanic Garden. So it's kind of really cool how that very short ride, like you're literally just going up a hill, that very, very, very short rides will take you from like the epicenter of a capital city to like the peacefulness of a botanic garden. And it's just a striking contrast. The view from on top as well are actually pretty awesome. You can see the whole basin, the whole harbor, as well as the whole city. It's quite a fun little ride, and it's definitely worth doing in my personal opinion.
Okay, so it's my turn to talk about some food now, which you can do obviously for very cheap in New Zealand, which is have some fish and chips. So fish and chips is kind of like the thing that New Zealand is really iconic for in terms of its food scene. And that's mainly because there's so much coastline around New Zealand that there's a lot of easy access to fresh fish to make your fresh fish and chips, which is usually served, the fish is usually served battered, and then you get fried, basically fries, but it's kind of called fish and chips in New Zealand. And yeah, so definitely worth trying when you're in a coastal town in the country and trying that iconic dish that New Zealand is known for.
Alright, so next on the list is something very, very, very quirky that pretty much nobody is going to be doing. I just want to give them a shout out right here. So if you happen to travel down the west coast of the South Island of New Zealand and stop by the beautiful little township of Rifton, which basically was bustling and quite thriving back in the days when mining was a big thing on the South Island of New Zealand. In fact, this is the town that was the first one to have a street light actually in the country, which is quite cool. You can see that there. But you can check out the Bearded Miners. It's a gold coin donation to go there, and yeah, you'll be able to talk with some old miners that used to mine, and you can ask them questions. They can show you a few things around, like, you know, like how to check some opals in water. Just a lot of cool little things. There's gold a bit panning. Of a gold panning. There is a bit of a replica of a bit of a village. It's kind of a really cool place to hang out and learn more about these actually quite formative years of New Zealand and its economy when it comes down to the South Island of New Zealand and the mining areas.
Okay, another quirky attraction you can go visit is the National Trout Centre, or the Tongariro National Trout Centre, should I say, which is located just outside of the town of Turangi, which is in the North Island. But this place, although the trout aspect is quite interesting, you can see the trout hatchery there. You can see how huge these fish get, and it's really like the area is known for its trout fishing. That's kind of why the trout center's here. But you can also do various different walks to see bird wildlife. They have a creche for blue duck, which is a native type of duck in New Zealand, which is really interesting to see as well. They do conservation efforts there to learn more about this unique duck species, which has little lips to sort of suck up all the insects and stuff off rocks and things. They're really, really quite weird. And also, yeah, they like whitewater rafting, so that's pretty cool. You can see them like actually riding the rapids down various rivers in New Zealand. So it's really, really interesting to see that and to see the different sort of wildlife aspects of the National Trout Centre.
All right, so next up on the list, we have the buried village of Te Wairoa. Pardon my pronunciation. So, in 1886, Mount Tarawera, again, pardon my pronunciation, erupted and buried a village. And, you can see some of the remnants of that during a really cool and interesting and very educational tour in Rotorua. There is obviously a bit of a section which is outdoor, and there is an indoor section which is like a bit of a museum and geothermal waterfall trail. So it's definitely worth spending some time if you do have the extra time in Rotorua and want to do something a little more quirky and a little bit more different.
We're now going to head to Dunedin to an interesting activity that you can do, which is a guided tour of the Ulverston Historic Home. So this is one of the oldest sort of mansions, large homes in the Dunedin area that was sort of built during its thriving years when it was established as throughout the gold mining era in the Otago region of New Zealand. And yeah, you just get to see sort of like what these old homes used to look like and all their interesting trinkets and artwork. And yeah, it's just a really interesting alternative experience. Rather than just going to museums all the time, you can sort of see what an old sort of pioneer's home used to look like in New Zealand.
Alright, so in New Zealand you can visit a lot of wineries, you can visit a lot of breweries, and we mentioned both of those already in this list. But the other thing that you can visit are distilleries where spirits are made. Not the woo spirits, the spirit glue glue glue. Yes, that's right, I can do onomatopoeias as well. Alright, so one of the best distilleries to visit is located in Takaka, which is in Golden Bay. If you want to picture that, it is basically a little bit at the west of the Abel Tasman National Park, and it is called the Dancing Sand Distillery, and you'll be able to do a bit of an in-depth tours on how they make all their spirits, as well as a bit of a tasting too. Just make sure that you have your own designated driver.
Okay, this is another activity that is very affordable to do in Christchurch, which is going to the Christchurch Adventure Park. So it is, it's very cheap to first take the chairlift up to the area, So you can get some good views on your way up. And then once you arrive to the top of the chairlift, you can do various walks, which of course are free after that. So that keeps the prices down. But if you happen to be traveling around New Zealand with your own mountain bike, that sort of thing, then you can do some of the mountain bike trails that are also available up there. And otherwise, you can just sit and relax and have a coffee at the cafe that's also located in the very high altitude area, which is pretty cool to spend the day.
All right, and lastly, to round up our list of 30 things to do under $30 in New Zealand, there are many cities that will allow you to escape from the city to an island for only about $30. So if you are stuck in Christchurch, you can head from the little harbour of Littleton to Quail Island, which is a really cool little walk to do. If you are in Wellington, you can go to Matthew Somers Islands, and if you are in Auckland, you can head to Rangitoto Islands. So all of those little islands are quite easy to access, and they're around the $30 mark, with the Auckland one being a little above that, but you know, it's still stake around this. So all of the islands have their own little unique things to visit, but most of them are kind of areas where you can do I was about to say hike, but they mostly walk. They're very easy kind of walk, family-friendly walks. So they're great ways for you to kind of escape the cities for, not too much without breaking the bank. Nice. All right, Laura, I think that we're done with all of those. There's much more on nzpocketguide.com for sure. We do have a lot of budget activity listed for every area that you're going to be visiting.